I sat alone in the kitchen of our little house in Quincy, the laptop screen glowing on my face under the dim fluorescent light. The wall clock read exactly 7 p.m., and outside, the Boston fall wind was blowing soft, carrying that faint smell of wet leaves from the park down the street. I'd gotten the offer email from work that afternoon, but I hadn't opened it right away. I waited until I was home, until the place was quiet. Just the low hum of the fridge and the distant whoosh of cars on the road. New salary, $78,000 a year. Senior analyst. Not some massive leap, but it hit different. From $62,000 to $78,000. That's roughly an extra grand a month after taxes. Enough to speed up paying off student loans, bump up the house fund contributions, maybe even take a short trip without nickel-and-diming every damn thing. I stared at the number for a long time, unblinking. Not because I didn't want to tell Julian. For once in my life, I just wanted to hold the moment for myself. Feel it clean, without anyone's congratulations or follow-up questions watering it down. I'd been grinding on my own for so long, 3 part-time jobs, all-nighters cramming, months where I had to pick between textbooks and groceries. This win was mine first. I printed the offer letter, a plain sheet of white paper, black ink on white, folded it, slipped it into my hoodie pocket, then got up to make coffee. The dark roast smell filled the small kitchen, pulling me back to those old late nights in Allston. Julian would be home a little later tonight. He had a client meeting downtown, but he'd texted he'd try to make it before 8. I wasn't antsy. I just sat there, sipping black coffee, letting my brain run the new numbers. House contributions jumping to 55% from my pay. Student debt cleared in 2 years instead of 3. Not total freedom, but a hell of a lot closer. The jingle of keys at the front door snapped me out of it. Julian walked in, hair a little messy from the wind, shrugged off his coat and hung it up, then smiled when he saw me. "You're home early," he said, voice warm the way it always is. He came straight to the kitchen, wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. I felt his body heat, that faint cologne mixed with the city smell clinging to him. I didn't say much, just reached into my pocket, pulled out the folded paper, opened it, and set it on the kitchen table. Julian let go, picked it up, read it slowly, new title, new salary, start date. No whoops, no clapping, no bear hug. He just set it down, looked at me and gave that small, quiet smile, the one only we get. Not a loud congrats. It was more like, "I know exactly how hard you fought to get here." And in that second, I knew he got it, why I hadn't texted him the second it landed, why I needed to sit with it alone first. $78K, he said softly, pride thick in his voice. "You deserve this." I nodded, pulled him closer. We didn't need a speech. We just stood there in our tiny kitchen, the offer letter between us on the table, everything feeling like it was finally lining up. A few weeks after I accepted the senior analyst gig, life settled back into its rhythm. I was in the Quincy kitchen again, washing dishes after dinner. Same old herb-roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, balsamic vinaigrette salad, when Julian walked in. He didn't peel off his coat like usual. Instead, he stopped in the doorway, phone in hand, looking at me with that rare, serious expression. Not worried, just thoughtful, like he'd already turned it over in his head a dozen times. "Got a minute?" he asked, calm. I dried my hands on a towel, turned off the faucet, nodded. We sat at the dining table, the beat-up wood one we snagged off Craigslist last year, still scratched from moving day. Julian opened his laptop, spun it toward me. On the screen, his offer email. Senior consultant, base salary bumped to $85,000 a year, plus expected bonus $20-25K if targets hit. And the big one, travel schedule 2 weeks a month in New York, on-site with a major client in Midtown. He didn't say anything at first, just let me read. I scanned it line by line. New responsibilities, team he'd be leading, clearer path to promotion. In my head, I was already running the math. 2 weeks in New York meant 2 weeks he wouldn't come home. 2 weeks I'd be alone in Quincy. Costs. Amtrak tickets or cheap flights. Company covered part of the hotel, but still extra for meals, coffee, little stuff. Our shared budget would take a hit, at least $300-400 a month if we were honest. When I looked up, Julian had been watching me the whole time. Not waiting for a reaction, just waiting for me to ask. "You gonna sign?" I said. "Not yet." Straight answer. "Wanted to talk to you first. Not because I need your permission. I know you'd back me if I really wanted it. But I want us to look at the budget, the schedule, everything together. If it's gonna throw us off too much, I'll turn it down." I nodded, scooted my chair closer. We pulled up the spreadsheet shared plan V4, the one we'd updated after my promotion. Julian added a new tab, projected income, travel expenses, time apart, and a separate column labeled impact on Elias. He laid it all out. Pros: higher pay, better experience, bigger network, maybe even something that could help my firm down the line if I scale up. Cons: 2 weeks apart every month, him more exhausted, me handling the house solo, cooking for one, maybe feeling lonely some nights. He presented it like one of his old venture capital class pitches. Clear, logical, no sugarcoating the numbers. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I sat quiet for a minute, staring out the window. Streetlights were on in Quincy, fall leaves drifting across the sidewalk. "You really want this?" I asked, not doubting, just needing to hear it plain. He looked me dead in the eye. "I do. Not for the money or the title. I love working with startups and scale-ups, and this New York project is exactly the kind I used to dream about. But if you think it's not worth it, if 2 weeks apart is going to wear us down or stretch the budget too thin, then I won't sign. I don't want us sacrificing just so I can chase something." I let out a slow breath. He'd never put it like that before. Not "I'll try to come home early or you'll be fine." Just, "If you don't want this, I stop." I thought about those late nights back in Somerville when he'd drag in exhausted, cold dinners, the time we slept in separate rooms after a fight. Then I thought about now, our own place, our routines, our plans laid out. 2 weeks a month isn't forever, but it's real time. Time I'd cook for one, time he'd crash in a hotel instead of next to me. But I also thought about him, the guy who'd gone from trust fund kid to the man who'd sit on the floor at 2 a.m. running financial models with me. He deserved the shot. I put my hand over his. "Sign it. You deserve this." Julian didn't grin right away. His eyes got a little shiny. He nodded slowly. "Thank you." He closed the laptop, stood, pulled me into his arms. We stood like that in the kitchen for a long time, no more words needed. He'd asked before deciding. I'd answered honestly. And we both knew that no matter how tough those 2 weeks apart got, we'd adjust. Like we always do. That night we didn't eat anything else. Just lay on the couch. Him spooning me from behind, hand flat on my chest, our heartbeats syncing up. Outside, the Boston fall wind picked up, rattling the leaves. I thought about New York, the city he'd be in 2 weeks every month, and told myself, I'll be okay, because he'll come home, and when he does, we'll keep looking in the same direction. Only now that direction includes an Amtrak train every couple weeks. Julian left on the first Monday morning of the month. He was up early, brewing coffee for both of us like always, then wheeling his small carry-on to the door. We didn't say much, just a quick hug, his lips brushing my hair, and a soft, "I'll call when I get there," before he headed down the stairs. I stood at the living room window, watching the Uber pull away and disappear around the Quincy corner. No dramatic movie farewell. Just another day, except the house suddenly felt quieter. The first 2 weeks passed slower than I expected. Not because I was drowning in sadness or loneliness. I'd lived alone plenty back in college, pulling graveyard shifts at the convenience store, waiting up for Julian when he worked late. But this time was different. The house wasn't a place he could walk into any time anymore. It was just me completely. That first evening, I made the usual herb-roasted chicken, just enough for one. I set the plate on the table, turned on the small desk lamp, and ate slowly. No Julian across from me recounting some ridiculous client story. No him grinning when I complained about a stubborn data bug. Just the clink of fork on plate. The fridge's low hum. The autumn wind slipping through the window crack. I finished, washed the dishes, then sank onto the sofa with my laptop. Not to work. I opened a fresh tab. Freelance consulting ideas. Nothing concrete. Just scattered notes. Data analytics for small startups? Niche verticals? Cost to set up an LLC in Massachusetts? Potential leads from old network? Short, messy lines. But they were there, like seeds I dropped without thinking. The days after that, I started filling the quiet with small things. I got up earlier, ran loops around the park near the house. Quincy air sharp and cold, yellow leaves crunching under my sneakers. I read more, a book on independent consulting I'd ordered from Amazon, a few articles on the data analytics market for SMBs. I didn't pressure myself to build something huge. I just used the extra time to think, what would it look like if I ever left the firm, if I built something of my own? Some nights I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself if I was really okay. Not because I missed Julian, though I did, but because I realized how much I'd gotten used to him being here. Even when he was quiet, even when he was just breathing next to me. The house wasn't a place to come home to anymore. It was where I lived, and I had to make it feel full on my own. I flicked on the bedside lamp, grabbed the old leather notebook I'd been using since BU, and jotted more. If I start a firm, begin with 3 small clients. Month, 1 revenue projection, $5 8K. Startup costs. Website, software, LLC taxes is almost equal to $2,000 first year. Rough numbers, half-formed questions. Not a plan yet, just thoughts I hadn't let myself have before. Julian called every night around 9. His voice sounded tired but warm. He told me about the Midtown client, the glass tower, the overpriced Starbucks coffee he grabbed between meetings. I told him about my runs, the book I was reading, the vague ideas in my notebook. We didn't say, I miss you or I'm lonely, just everyday stuff. And it was enough to keep the thread between us. On the 14th night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the calendar on my phone. 2 more days until he was back. I opened Shared Plan V4, updated his projected income, higher base, potential bonus, and added a new line, Elias potential side income from freelance. Not to prove anything. Just because in those 2 weeks I'd figured out that alone time wasn't an empty space. It was room to start thinking about something that could be mine. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed. The fall wind still rattled the windows, leaves scraping across the sidewalk outside. I lay there thinking about Julian, probably in New York right then, reviewing one last slide deck before crashing. And I thought about myself. Not the kid juggling 3 jobs anymore, not the guy always waiting. I was here, in the house we bought together, with a notebook full of half-baked ideas, and for the first time the quiet didn't scare me. 2 weeks alone didn't make me lonely. It made me clearer. And when Julian comes home, I'll tell him. Not to brag. Just so we can look at the new direction together, the one we're both walking toward now. Julian came home that Friday afternoon right on schedule. He walked through the door with his small roller suitcase, hair tousled from the wind off the train platform, wearing that tired but real smile. We didn't crash into each other like some movie scene. Just a quick hug, his lips brushing my forehead, then he shrugged off his coat and hung it up. House is still standing, he said quietly, a little teasing in his voice. I gave a small laugh and tugged him toward the kitchen. I'd already roasted the chicken, our usual, and we ate slowly at the table. He told me about New York. The picky client, the absurdly expensive coffee, but the project was moving in the right direction. I told him about my 2 weeks alone, early morning runs, the independent consulting book, and the new pages in my notebook full of half-formed ideas. He listened without interrupting, just nodding when I mentioned the vague, what if I started my own firm thought. That weekend we decided to go look at houses. Not because we were rushing to buy. The house fund had hit about $92,000 after more than 2 years of steady contributions and a couple of bonuses, still short of the $120,000 down payment target, but just to see what's out there. Julian had found a listing online. A 2-bedroom in Quincy, 3rd floor of an older building, listed around $465,000, close to the river and a small park. Just looking, he said as we got in the car. No pressure. We drove my beat-up Honda Civic through the quiet Quincy streets, trees mostly bare now, a few stray dry leaves skittering across the sidewalks. The place was on a side street, maybe a 10-minute walk to the T-station. The agent, a middle-aged woman named Karen, was waiting at the door. She let us in with her bright real estate voice. This one just hit the market last week. Owners already moved out of state. Inside, it wasn't fancy. Old hardwood floors with some scratches. Small kitchen with faded walnut cabinets. The living room had big windows looking straight out at the park. Ancient oak trees. A couple of stone benches. And in the distance, the Neponset River catching the late afternoon light. Julian walked right to the window and stood there. I like this view, he said softly. Could wake up and run right down there in the morning. I didn't answer right away. I moved through the place slowly, the way I always do. Tapped the walls lightly to listen for hollow spots. Not an expert, but I know the difference between solid and empty. Ran the faucets in the kitchen and bathroom. Let the water flow for a few seconds to check pressure. Tested outlets. Opened cabinets to sniff for dampness or mold. Julian leaned in the living room doorway, arms crossed, watching me, then let out a quiet laugh. Are you buying a house or auditing the property? I stopped, looked at him. If we buy, we need to know it's solid. Don't want surprise repairs down the line. Karen chuckled along, but Julian didn't laugh right away. He stepped closer, rested a hand on my shoulder. You're right. I like this feeling. Our house. We went up to the third floor, 2 small bedrooms. One had a window facing the river. The primary had light hardwood, enough space for a queen bed and a little desk. Julian stood in the middle, turned a slow circle. This room for us. The other one could be an office for you, if you ever start that firm. I nodded, didn't say anything. We didn't decide to make an offer that day. Karen handed us the brochure, said, "Take your time. The price is strong right now." We thanked her and headed back to the car. On the drive home, the sky was starting to darken. Cold wind sent more dry leaves tumbling across the windshield. Julian drove, right hand on the gear shift, left hand occasionally brushing mine. We didn't talk much. Just short things. The view's really nice. Primary bedroom felt bigger than I expected. Close to the T, easy commute. At a red light, he turned to look at me. What do you think? It's decent, I said. We should see a few more. But I liked the park. And the kitchen's big enough for roasting chicken. He smiled real easy. Then he reached over, laced his fingers through mine on the center console. Not tight, just holding. We kept driving through the familiar Quincy streets. Streetlights coming on in soft yellow pools. When we got home, we didn't turn on the overheads. Just the small table lamp in the living room. We sat on the sofa, shoulders touching, staring at Karen's brochure. We didn't talk about buying or not buying. Just sat there, fingers still linked, listening to the fall wind slip through the window cracks. For the first time, the idea of our house wasn't just numbers on a spreadsheet anymore. Felt real, tangible, close, and a little scary. But not the bad kind of scary. The good kind. The fear that if everything went right, we'd actually have a place that was truly ours. And I knew, whether it was that condo or a different one, we'd walk through every room together, check every corner, every faucet, every number. Because that's how we do things. Together.